Could Deangelo Malone finally be ready to break out of his special teams shell and become the defensive weapon the Atlanta Falcons have been waiting for since 2022? After 3 seasons of being labeled primarily as Atlanta's special teams enforcer, the former third-round pick is about to embark on the most important phase of his NFL career. And if new defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich's vision comes to fruition, we might be witnessing the transformation of a player who was once considered a reach in the draft into a legitimate defensive game-changer. Let's dive into how the Falcons' new defensive philosophy could finally unlock the potential that's been hiding in plain sight. When Jeff Ulbrich took over as Atlanta's defensive coordinator this past January, he didn't waste any time diving into film study. What he discovered was both encouraging and concerning. The Falcons' roster was loaded with versatile players who could do a little bit of everything, but the question lingered. Were they masters of nothing because they were trying to be jacks of all trades? This revelation led Ulbrich to make a crucial decision that would reshape how he approached player development. Instead of continuing to rely solely on versatility, he committed to helping each player master one primary skill set first, then build from there. It's a philosophy that sounds simple in theory, but requires significant commitment and patience in practice. Enter Deangelo Malone, the unheralded linebacker from Western Kentucky, who arrived in Atlanta with modest expectations but immense potential. Remember, this was the pick the Falcons acquired in the Matt Ryan trade with Indianapolis. No pressure there, right? While the 2022 draft class featured some of the most talented defensive players in recent memory, Malone's name rarely came up in those elite conversations. But here's what made Malone special from day one. He never needed the spotlight to validate his worth. Since arriving in Atlanta, he's quietly become what Raheem Morris calls a team's special teams bully, earning his roster spot through sheer determination and relentless effort on coverage units. However, the constant turnover in defensive coordinators and systems in Atlanta made it nearly impossible for Malone to establish any kind of defensive foundation. His role remained frustratingly vague, his potential largely untapped. That changed the moment Ulbrich started breaking down film and saw something that previous coordinators had missed. What caught Ulbrich's attention wasn't just Malone's ability to rush the passer from the edge. That was expected. It was his coverage work, his ability to flow the football, and his instincts when working inside the box that sparked an idea. What if Malone could become a legitimate inside linebacker first, then expand his role from there? This vision became reality during last Friday's preseason game against the Detroit Lions, where fans got their first real glimpse of Malone's expanded role. He spent the entire first half working as an inside linebacker, showcasing coverage skills and run-stopping ability that many didn't know he possessed. Then in the second half, he shifted back to his more familiar edge rushing role, demonstrating the versatility that makes him so valuable. The performance didn't go unnoticed by Morris, who was effusive in his praise. Watching Malone seamlessly transition between positions while maintaining his effectiveness was exactly what the coaching staff hoped to see when they implemented this new developmental approach. But let's be clear about what this means for Malone's future with the team. In previous years, his value was almost exclusively tied to special teams performance. While that's still his bread and butter, and Morris makes it clear that Malone remains their go-to enforcer on coverage units, the team is now actively working to expand his value across all 3 phases of the game. This approach mirrors what Ulbrich is doing with other versatile defenders like Caden Ellis and rookie Jalen Walker. Rather than forcing them to be everything to everyone, he's helping them establish one elite skill set, then layering additional responsibilities on top of that foundation. For Ellis, that meant transforming from a utility linebacker into a legitimate edge rusher who can still do everything else when needed. For Walker, it means developing his pass rushing skills first while maintaining the versatility that made him special at Georgia. And for Malone, it means mastering the inside linebacker position while keeping his edge rushing tools sharp. The beauty of this philosophy becomes apparent when you consider how modern NFL offenses attack defenses. Having players who can genuinely excel in multiple roles creates matchup nightmares for opposing coordinators. They can't simply game plan for one version of these players. They have to account for multiple skill sets from the same individuals. Malone's own assessment of his expanded role reveals the mindset that could make this transition successful. He jokes that it's easier to go forward than backward, referring to pass rushing versus coverage responsibilities. But his fundamental approach remains the same. Create disruption wherever he lines up. That don't overthink it, just shoot the gap mentality is exactly what separates effective defenders from those who get paralyzed by too much responsibility. Malone has the physical tools and football instincts to succeed in multiple roles. What he needed was a coordinator willing to develop those skills systematically rather than throwing him into different positions and hoping for the best. As we head deeper into the preseason and approach the regular season, keep an eye on how Malone continues to develop in this expanded role. If Ulbrich's vision proves correct, we could be watching the emergence of one of the most underrated defensive players in the NFC South. The stakes couldn't be higher for both Malone and the Falcons' defense. Atlanta needs playmakers at every level, and finding one who is already on the roster would be a massive win for the organization. For Malone, this represents his best opportunity to prove he's more than just a special teams ace. What do you think about this new role for Deangelo Malone? Can he make the leap from special teams star to legitimate defensive weapon? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like button if you're excited to see how this defensive transformation unfolds throughout the season.